The soft bigotry of low expectations. This is a headline of an article in the Gleaner, and it was penned by one of our former ministers of education. And in it, he went through that our educational institutions have adopted this kind of defeatist attitude when it comes to some children from certain backgrounds, that they literally don't have any hopes for them to perform well, and you just take whatever they can give you. And he was lamenting how that's not right and so on, and how that mentality pervades, is pervasive and interacts with other aspects of human life and all these things in Jamaican life. All true. However, there was a particular aspect of education that is directly linked to the soft bigotry of low expectation that he did not mention. It almost seemed like a blind spot, and that is our pass mark. Our pass mark in Jamaica is 50%. 50%. That's all. That's a coin toss. And what does passing a course or a subject, what does that mean? It should mean that you are competent in that course or subject. It should mean that you are consistently able to perform a task, or you have persistent knowledge, reliable knowledge on a particular topic. So if I were to give, if there was an equation, let's say 2x plus 1 equal 8, right? And your course is geared, that's a linear equation, and your course is geared towards solving linear equations, and you tell someone you pass that course, that should mean that you can reliably solve that equation, an equation like that, 2x plus 1 equal 8. This also means that if I should change the coefficient from a natural number to a fraction, so let's say it is now 2/3 x plus 1 equal 8, you should still be able to solve that. What happens if I make all the terms fractions? So 2/3 x minus 4/5 equal 7/10. You should still be able to solve that if you are competent at solving linear equations. But can you really say that a toss-up, a coin toss, means that you're competent? If half the time you can solve it and half the time you can't, and more likely what this means is the simpler equations you can solve, but the moment you have a fraction, you don't know what to do. Can you say that you are now competent in solving linear equations? In my mind, look, here's the thing, many years ago, I had a conversation with someone, and I was, and well, the topic of pass mark came up, and I was saying that 50 is way too low. The person was a student at the time, and they said, no, it's perfectly fine. And I said, no, it's too low, and you agree with me. Let me show you how. So I asked her, if you had to go to a hospital and there's a doctor, you had two options, two doctors. One doctor passed with just 50. Another doctor passed with 80, 90. Which of those two doctors would you want to operate on you? She said the one with 80 and 90. Not the one with 50. All right. If you, well, like I said, she was a student at the time. You had an option for teachers, two teachers. One got through with just 50. Another got through with 80 and 90s. Which of these teachers would you pick? She said the one with 80 and 90s. All right. Why is it then that you are holding other people to such a high standard that you don't want to hold or to achieve yourself? You would not pick, if you had the option, you would not pick anyone with the whose grades are just a toss-up, a 50-50. You'd want the best. But yet, when it comes to you, your performance, students often want, not even just students, people in general, we want our bare minimum to be acceptable, and we don't want to push ourselves. We demand excellence of others, but not from our of ourselves. So I was very curious now, because from primary school days, I don't know if America primary school or elementary school, we'll call it. Well, I know you're high school. So from before high school days, to us as primary school. So from primary school days, my pass mark in my mind was always 60%, because it's 50 too low. So if I got anything less than 60, in my mind, I failed. So I did a bit of research, and I can you imagine my shock when I checked the pass mark for the US and Japan, right? US and Japan. The pass mark, let's start with the US first. The pass mark for people in the US First, all right. So the naming is a little bit weird because the lettering, I should say. So in some places they say D is the lowest passing grade, but then some schools call it a C. But numerically, anything below a 60 or even 70% is failing. That I agree with. That I agree with because it shows that you should be competent at this thing. A coin toss doesn't convey competence. So in the US, and it's funny now that in Jamaica we will blindly follow every destructive pattern that the US decides to push out. But the good things we will completely ignore because this is a very good policy. Then I looked at Japan. What do you think Japan's pass mark is? 60 or higher. So both in the US and Japan, the pass mark is 60 or higher. We drop it all the way down to 50. And here's the funny thing now. The official pass mark is 50, yes. But if you're in any educational institution in Jamaica, the teachers will tell you that the true pass mark is like 45, or in some cases even 40. Because if the student gets those numbers, the teacher will just add 5%, add 10%. So the student doesn't even have to get the 50%, just come close enough to it. Imagine that. 45%, not even 50, not even less than you're less reliable than a coin toss. How is that not the bigotry or a bigotry of low expectations? So even if you throw enough money at schools, you still will run into that problem of the pass mark being way too low. Additionally, you also have makeup tests and these things. That's also low expectations. Bigotry of low expectations. And the more progressive or it's from a progressive ideology, the constructivist philosophy of education. They are all touchy-feely and human and think about the feelings and so on. And they come up, who was it? Mesero? I think it was Mesero, with multiple intelligences and stuff like that. Was it Mesero? I don't remember. With multiple intelligences, and basically they always use this little graphic. I'll try to see if I can find it. Basically, they have a bunch of like animals in being educated, and they will say that you are all different animals, but we want how we can assess you is by asking you all to climb a tree. And that's to show that whole education is unfair and it is prejudice and it is blah 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 and non-inclusive and all this garbage, right? Now that I think stems from one of the issues of we not having an educational philosophy. Now sure, if I ask the politicians, they will tell you what our motto is, that every child must learn, every child can learn, every child must learn, or no child left behind, or something like that. But that's not a philosophy. That's a motto, that's a campaign slogan. Learn what? And for what purpose? So one of the biggest flaws with that little animal thing that the constructivist education people who believe in constructivism always use is, if the course or if the subject, if the purpose of education is to teach the people how to climb a tree, then yes, climbing a tree is the only acceptable way to assess that program or that education or the ability of the students to achieve that outcome. It makes no sense for the purpose of education is to teach how to swim, and then I judge you based on how fast you can run. That makes no sense. So your assessment must align with the goals of education, but the first thing is you need to have a goal or a purpose of education. So once you have your goal, once you have your purpose, we can then streamline the curriculum. We can determine what is a proper pass mark. If passing supposed to mean that you are, if achieving the pass mark means that you are competent, well, how many failures are you allowed before you are no longer competent at something? That's the question, or that should have been a question when deciding on the pass mark. Anyway, this is a little bit different. Normally, I do gaming videos and complaining about woke stuff invading me look happy, and I will go back to that. Don't worry. I just saw this headline, and it's something that's been bothering me for a number of years now. So it's a bit cathartic on my end.